Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, June 23rd, 2015. This is The Refinery, a weekly discussion about solving conservative messaging problems. I'm Leslie Price with the Conservative Union. Joining me this evening is Ryan Bickmore, also with the Conservative Union. From Free Radical Network, we have J.D. Bryden. And from the Party of Choice, we have Corey and Andy Pate. Felicia Cravens, you might notice, is missing this evening. I don't know, she's pretending that she has internet issues. She may just have had something better to do. I don't know. At any rate, we are live every Tuesday night at 8:45 Central on therefineryshow.com. Join us there live to chat with us during the show. You can also go to the Refinery Show, therefineryshow.com, anytime during the week to listen to the show via YouTube or via any of your podcast methods of choice, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, etc. We are also available at Vigilant Liberty Radio. VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Oh my gosh,
VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And
can't believe I
sorry for my
forgot that.
voice.
Just a complete brain lock. VigilantLibertyRadio.us. They broadcast us on Thursday evenings, and you can also find us there 24/7. So, therefineryshow.com, therefineryshow.com. That would be therefineryshow.com. Everybody got it? Good. This evening, we wanted to talk about a really outstanding article that Andy wrote. You may or may not have read already. It's called what's the name of the title? Family versus Collective by Andy Payton. We'll put a link to it in the chat. Somebody who's logged into the chat, please. Andy explains that, well, let me just read his first paragraph because it really sets the tone for the whole episode that we've got going today. Today's Democrat Party is unlike anything we've faced. It's enormous. It's incredibly diverse, holding its greatest strength in the fastest growing demographics. Funding? Limitless. Worst of all, thanks to public schools, entertainment, and the media, our society is bathed in Democrat ideology from womb to tomb. I'll say it again, we've never faced anything like this, not in the 1960s or even in the 1860s. Are you scared yet? You should be. Yes, the Democrat Party is stronger, bigger, more well-funded, more insidious, and buried deep into the fabric of this nation than anything we've ever seen before. And it's a different Democrat Party than you think. It's progressivism. And for those of you who, like me, understand Star Trek: The Next Generation, put simply, the Democrat Party has become a collective, a machine, like the Borg. Today's Democrat leaders control all who come in their path, and they do this through convincing the masses that other people deserve to be controlled. You've seen that this week. How much of what's been going on this week with the phony ginned-up outrage about the Confederate battle flag, how much of that has been about the Democrat Party exercising its control over American society? And we have been powerless in the face of that onslaught. So we understand and we realize that we are facing something that is top-down, unified, collective. And our instinct is to fight against that by being an equally powerful collective ourselves. And it ends up being two different kinds of collectives, and we see that, and you're going to recognize this immediately. There's the top-down collective, what we know as the conservative establishment, and that's the elected GOP officials and the consultants and the political party class. That is the conservative collective from the top-down side. Then we have the bottom-up collective, which is the grassroots. And we're familiar with that Tea Party and our grassroots rebellion against the establishment. And both are very much collectives where there's, a specific ideology that you have to adhere to. Otherwise, you are a rhino or you're a wacko, right-wing wacko, and you don't fit in and you're not part of the collective. But once you're part of this collective, you have to be exactly like all of us and we'll move forward and we'll take over the world. Only it doesn't work. Because if you're really a conservative, there's really no way you can ever be a part of a collective. All of us, even those of us who see ourselves as part of this whole grassroots, bottom-up kind of collective thing, we instinctively know that the description of being a member of the collective does not fit us. I think of it as, it's herding cats trying to get conservatives to really do anything, even, whether you're coming at it from the Tea Party side or from the GOP establishment side. We just are not collective type of people. We don't have that funding infrastructure that sends out I don't know, the journal list, talking points memo, and everybody echo the same thing across all of the Twitterverse. We don't do that because we
But
each have our own
but the
independent
Koch
thoughts.
brothers. But the
But
Koch brothers, Leslie, the Koch brothers.
right, and that's why we laugh. The other side is painting us as a collective because they only understand collectivism. That's all they see. So, when you're a hammer, the whole world is a nail. That's exactly, they see us as a collective. And because there are so many of them, we tend to kind of fall into their definition of reality and want to define ourselves as a collective as well. Only we're like a failed collective, and we always will be. Because Andy sees us on this. We're not a collective, we're a family. And Andy, you explain it so beautifully and in such an inspirational way. Explain the difference and why we're a family, not a collective, and what the power of that is.
Well, I think the first thing is you got to look at what a collective does. When you think about the collective, when you think about the Borg on Star Trek, which, by the way, was really shocking for them to have the Borg collective on Star Trek. Star Trek as a series was dedicated to socialism and communism. They were. And the idea of Star Trek
Right,
was
it's like
socialism.
The Borg was like 2 degrees more collectivist than the Federation, and so bad.
It was crazy. Yeah, and the Ferengi were the evil capitalists, and they were the picture of us on the right. And it was kind of funny that they did the Borg. And it was also odd that Borg are all gray, just like you are in Russia when you're buying bread. I don't know. But at least stereotypically. Until a Russian moves here, and then they were incredibly bright and flamboyant colors. I'm not sure why. Here's the thing. When you look
Like
at the Borg, exactly. When you look at the Borg in Star Trek, what was the central thing about them? Control. They didn't believe in individuality. They were against it. They were against merit. They were against opportunity. They were centrally controlled, and they had to expand. The goal of the Borg was to control all through the inner control of who they were. So they controlled themselves, and they controlled everyone else. It was incredible. No individualism whatsoever. The Democrat Party, which of course raised me, is completely dedicated to this. I always tell people, there's only one reason to be a liberal Democrat, and that is control. And somebody might say, well, wait a minute, I'm a Democrat because I'm pro-choice on abortion. No. They're pro-choice Republicans. You're a pro-choice Democrat because you want to control pro-lifers and make them pay for your choices. Where they'll say, well, I believe in schooling. I believe in good schools. No. Both sides believe in good schools. You are a liberal Democrat because you want to make sure that other people's kids are educated your way. In every single issue, as you start going through issue after issue after issue, the goal of the Democrat is always to control those around them. All right? And that's why they believe in equal outcomes. In the Borg, you have equal outcomes. Nobody is rich in the Borg or poor. Nobody has more or less. It's always evened out. Now, when you look at our side, you got to think, okay, well, how do we beat the Borg? The Borg are incredibly hard to beat enemy. They're always growing. They're incredibly driven. They're totally united around control. They disagree over what things to control, but they come together to control them because it all takes government. Doesn't matter if it's EPA or whatever.
They take over everything they touch and absorb it into themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, can you think of any other way that the Democratic Party is like the Borg? I mean, it's endless, right? I mean, they want to control your
Absolutely.
gun. Yeah, your speech. Everything about them is. Well, to beat the Borg, you still have to have numbers, united numbers, don't you?
Yes.
See, too many people on our side believe that we can win, but with scattered numbers. We can just be scattered, and I'll do my way, and you do your way, and if I don't get the candidate I want, I won't vote, or I'll just vote for mine, or third or fourth party, or whatever. you know, and I love those parties. But the simple fact is you can't beat the board without the numbers. So the question is, how do you unite? What can we unite on? How can we unite on the right to face the board, to face the collective? And that's where I come up with family. You see, a family is not designed to control. And people will say, well, wait a minute, I've seen a lot of controls in families. Yeah, when there's control in families, when people act controlling in a family, they're treating each other like a collective.
Well, and that's what we call a dysfunctional family, and they seek therapy.
Right. Well, like when a parent disciplines a child not for the child's benefit, but out of the frustration of the parent, or when the child rebels against the parent, not because it's right, which can happen, right? But rather they rebel because they just want to get their way and they're stubborn. We use control tactics on the right. Whenever you're using a control tactic on the right, you're treating the family like a collective. But the problem is the right doesn't operate like a collective. We can't. We believe in individualism. Our entire philosophy is the opposite of the collective. So whenever we do control techniques on the right, be they top-down, like say from the GOP leadership throwing people out of committee positions because they didn't vote their way on the Pacific Trade Agreement, just an example, a recent one, or whether it be bottom-up, the grassroots saying, if you give us Jeb Bush, we're going to walk, we're not going to vote, we're not going to go with the team, okay? Those are control techniques. Those are threats. You're threatening the family. Either way, top down or bottom up, it doesn't work. That works fine in the collective. They don't care. They just want power. In our side, it doesn't work. And so what the whole idea of family versus collective is we have to operate as a family. And we can get into that more later.
See, I was concerned since I'm from New Jersey and half Italian that when you said family, there was going to be some
We'll make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, I was worried there for a second, but
there are a lot of dead bodies. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And who said that's not the way this is working, JD? Yeah. But
hey, I was just hoping. I was hoping that it wasn't going to be like that. Maybe I was wrong.
Let me, before we press on, because we'll get on into other writings and then come back to this. I want to remind people before it sounds hopeless. Individuals, when unleashed, see, a family believes in unleashing the individual, in making them better, in helping them aspire to become better things. A good parent wants their kids to outperform them.
Right.
Not to only do as they say. Okay? That's what a good parent wants.
Right. I'm going to teach you and give you the tools that you need to succeed on your own and really to shine out there in this wild, scary, wacky world.
Right. And that's the exact same thing with the Republican Party or the conservative movement as a whole. It's not about, I don't want a conservative movement where everybody believes as I do. I want Rand Paul in my movement. I want, Marco Rubio in my movement. I want Scott Walker. I want, Carly Fiorina.
Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee. Absolutely. Come on. There's a place for all of them.
Hucktorum.
Yes. There's a place for everyone.
Right. Because
God love him. There is a place for Donald Trump.
Yes. Donald Trump. Hey, even he has a good point, right? I mean, wouldn't it be great? Yeah, I know. He's not the one. He's not going to be the one. He's not the one I want. But wouldn't it be great to have a president who actually negotiates for us?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, so even he has a good point.
Who knew that was an option? I mean, I was like, wait, what? That was optional? I thought that was mandatory.
See, the family's pretty cool. The family, can I just spend just a minute before we move on and about how great the family is, or shall I come back to that later?
Keep on going.
No, go.
I remind people, because we bicker and we attack each other. Well, guess what? Families do that, and they attack each other, but you don't abandon it. And here's why. I want people to take a look at this family that we call the conservative movement. Think about it for a moment. How many people on our side commit serious crimes? Very few. If you were to poll a prison population, you'd find virtually no conservatives. Here we have the most well-armed group in America on our side, the NRA, And yet, what group in America commits the fewest violent crimes? The NRA. Them and the Amish, I think, are probably the least violent. You know, you have, if you look at election fraud, okay, stealing signs off people's yards, conservatives almost never do it. Liberals do it for breakfast. You know, they do it on the way to work. I mean, you see, we don't register illegals to vote for our side. We don't do these things. All right? We commit virtually no crimes. We commit virtually no anything. And that's why the media jumps on it desperately if they find a quote-unquote right-winger responsible for a mass shooting. You know, I mean, they're just so desperate for it because there's so few, right? And in the meantime, virtually all the killing that's done in the inner cities and done by jihadists and stuff, these are all left-wingers committing mass murder all over the place. You know why we on the right want to be armed? Because of all the left-wingers. I got to be honest. If there weren't left-wingers in our country, I wouldn't care if I could be armed. I honestly wouldn't. So
that's pretty much true. Yeah.
What I'm trying to tell
that's not true. That is not true for me. But
I know. Well, I'm just saying, the threat level would be so low. I guess to wind it up, I'm saying this, folks. When you unleash a movement and unleash the people in it and don't try to control it and don't treat it as a collective. Oh, and by the way, if you want to see the most charitable people in charitable giving, American conservatives are the most charitable in the world by far. By far. When you unleash a people, great things happen. Okay? Great things happen. Great possibilities because we believe in potential, opportunity, merit, all of the things you'll never see in the Borg. Although the Borg do have 7 of 9. I'm going to give them credit there.
Yeah, but she rebelled against the whole Borg thing because she gave herself a name.
You know why? Because it's just like Fox News. All the hot women are on Fox.
That's true.
And she and 7 of 9 woke up one day and said, I'm a hot woman. What am I doing here?
I must leave the Borg and be with, and yeah, okay. There you go.
It was only a matter of time. They were going to lose. Okay, so that was just, that's kind of saying.
I mean, 7 of 9, wasn't 7 of 9 married to the guy that Barack Obama beat because
she was married to a Republican, yes, and that divorce
records were unsealed and bad stuff happened, so yeah, that Borg might be even more powerful than you might have initially thought there, Andy.
There's a connection there of the dirty dealings of the Chicago Democrat Party.
Don't even get us started on the Kennedy connection to the Borg. I mean, it runs deep, guys. It runs very deep.
Yeah. And I just loved, in this article, I really loved you bringing home the fact that not only are we a family, we are a great family and a family worthy of commitment. And the family metaphor really, really works because in a family you have you have the crazy uncle or you have that weird Aunt Leslie, and it's okay. I'm still a member of the family too, and
despite all of the cats,
despite all of the cats,
obsession with '80s music, it's just.
Well, the '80s music is what endears me to the rest of the family. Okay, right? I don't want to hear anything different.
Understood.
You watch Wedding Singer before you go to bed every night?
Well, I would if I had it, but I don't actually have it on DVD. Oh, I'm going to add that to that Christmas list. Going to add that to the Christmas list.
Let me tell you a good thing about the collective. Let me give them a prop. The Borg. You don't see them. You see, the reason I reeled off all the neat things about your surrounding conservatives is because we tend to hate each other. But when you when you hate on Jeb Bush, you're forgetting his supporters are also some of the most patriotic, lawful, ethical people on the planet, just like Rand Paul's supporters, just like Marco Rubio's. Oh yeah, they all have weaknesses. But guys, the right is amazing. Well, the Borg, you'll notice they don't judge each other in the Borg. They don't micromanage. They micromanage each other, I'm sorry, but they don't look at each other constantly looking for fault and constantly saying, that the second I disagree with you, you should be cast out or whatever. The Borg don't do that. Why? Because they're committed to control, and they understand you break up the unity, you can't control. Well, let me tell you something, and I'll close with this. You also can't fight control if you break up the unity on our side. You can't do it.
Absolutely. I do just want to point out that there are, I mean, the Borg is in general, that's correct, that they don't judge each other or whatever, but on the far flanks of the left, there's definitely some judgment going on there from the social justice side, and those, I mean, there's an aspect, there's a side of the left and the Borg on the left that is in fact extremely volatile and ready to.
Oh, it's incredibly judgmental, but I mean, they don't judge each other much. They judge. They do, but they judge outward much more readily than inward.
Sure. Oh, I will absolutely agree.
We almost. I see more people on the right attacking each other than the Democrats anymore.
That I can agree. There's definitely more. We definitely attack each other more than the left attacks each other.
The left attacks us, and we attack us.
Yes, we do a very good job of it too.
So we get along at that point.
Right, that's how we get along with the left, is that we both, attack us.
I was just going to say is that it's sort of a brother sister relationship on the right. We have sort of, I don't know if sibling rivalry is the right way to put it, but there's that sort of, I don't know, need to sort of rib the other guy a little bit in the party. It seems that way, whether it is from the Rand Paul or the Marco Rubio or the Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush, whatever. But I really do want to reiterate the point that you made about the fact that these candidates all have, their followers are all conservative. You might have a problem with Jeb Bush, you might have a problem with whoever, but their supporters are people who their supporters are people who you probably agree with on 90% of the stuff, and you probably agree with these candidates on 90% of things out there as well. It's important to not lose sight of that, and I just want to reiterate that because it's a very astute point.
Well,
go ahead.
My big thing is this: the way to mess with the family, the way to damage the family, and once again, we can only beat the collective with a united family. The collective is powerful. Some people will talk like, well, we'll do like, the Whigs passed away, become Republicans. We'll just have the Republicans pass away and become something. No, that's why I explained at the beginning, the new Democratic Party is far, far, far more powerful than the one the Whigs were facing.
Right.
We can't do that this time. But the way to destroy the right is control. Is when it tries to control. So when you have top-down control from the bosses who are pulling power moves like happened in Mississippi, or like Boehner did with that committee position, or when you do bottom-up ones where you're campaigning by threat. If your guy gets the nomination, we're out. Well, if your girl gets the nomination, we're out. If you can't threaten the family. And let me tell you something, folks, that is a threat. When you say, if my candidate, if my candidate doesn't get it, I'm out of here, then you have no right to be there in the first place. Because look at it this way: if your candidate does win the nomination, you're going to be going to everybody saying, please support, let's all come together and rally around my candidate. How can you not offer the very thing that you're going to request?
Yes, and to go back to the Godfather analogy, if you do that, if you do try and campaign via threat, then you will wind up on the dinghy with Neary, and nobody wants that to happen. It's very bad news.
No, they do not. But people don't think ahead a step or two. What happens if you win the nomination? I've heard so many people in the reason I wrote one of the reasons I wrote the article was because I've heard so many people recently say, "My guy or the highway." That's a threat. You are threatening the family. Okay? You're threatening the family, and it's a pretty awesome family that you're threatening. Don't just think about the candidate that you don't like. Think about their followers. That's who you're threatening.
Bottom line, don't be Fredo. Leslie, take it away.
Well, and obviously we have to figure out that we are a family. That's one of the characteristics of family is that we fight amongst ourselves, but we defend our family against external threats. Sorry about that. But one of the things that I think we fall short on quite frequently is figuring out what the family really means. Andy just went through an explanation of how beautiful the family is in the results, in that we are law-abiding and we're charitable and we are successful and we do all of these good and wonderful things, and we say that this is the conservative family. And we talked about defining ourselves as conservatives a little bit last week, but really, what is a conservative? And that's a question that gets asked, and it's one of those things that is oddly quite difficult to answer, and each of us, I think, will come up with a different answer, because there isn't a universal answer to it. There isn't a universal description of what the family really is, but we do need to have sort of some overarching guidelines. And what's really a wonderful thing is that Jonah Goldberg obviously did a mind meld with me and answered the questions that I was asking in my mind, and he wrote this really terrific article. And I'm sure that someone's going to put a link in there when we say, and Jonah's article is titled, "When We Say Conservative, We Mean ... And it's a complex issue. One of the problems with the term conservative is that, unlike, say, socialist or even progressive, it can mean wildly different things in different cultures. And that's something I don't know that many of us really think about very often. But to say that you're a conservative in America means something very different than a conservative in Saudi Arabia or even a conservative in Great Britain. Because a conservative in America we want to conserve radically different things. Even British conservatives, our closeless ideological cousins, want to preserve the monarchy, which is an institution we fought a revolution to get rid of. In the Soviet Union, conservatives were the ones who wanted to preserve and defend the Bolshevik Revolution. So when we say that we're conservative, we have to really think about this a little bit more, and it's not something you can just say as a word and feel the answer to. You're actually going to have to think about it, and it's not really a meme. It's a lengthy article written by Jonah Goldberg that you really have to kind of get your head around. A conservative in America in 2015 is trying to conserve America's founding principles, which actually is classical liberalism. So American conservatism is actually classical liberalism, and that's where, when you try to have a conservative union that's like a global movement, we have to get really careful about our definitions, and that's why many of us kind of say, well, it's kind of libertarian. It's, as Jonah says, it's a bundle of principles married to a prudential and humble appreciation of the complexity of life and the sanctity of successful human institutions. That seems kind of vague, but it's actually pretty profound. And then Yuval Levin, or Levin, however he pronounces his name, this is a really key one. And when Ryan first read this article, this is what when I shared this article out, I didn't really prompt anybody with, these are my favorite pieces of the articles, because it really is a complex article that you need to read the whole thing. But Ryan and several people, their initial comment back was the thing that I seized upon as the real, yes, this is it kind of thing when I was reading the article. And Yuval says, "To my mind, conservatism is gratitude. Conservatives tend to begin from gratitude for what is good and what works in our society, and then strive to build on it. while liberals tend to begin from outrage at what is bad and broken and seek to uproot it. And this is why conservatives and liberals can agree, conservatives and progressives, we need to really stop calling them liberal. That's why conservatives and progressives can agree on the current situation and that it's bad, because we're both standing here looking at the same reality, but we come at the reality beginning from gratitude for what is good and wanting to build on it, and progressives come at it from outrage at what is bad and uprooting it. So they're wanting to tear away a portion of it, and we're wanting to look at the good stuff and create more of it. And that's why we tend to be, actually, if you look at most of the polls, that's why we tend to be happier, because we're focused on gratitude for the good stuff and a desire to build more of it. Conservatism is actually a creative and a creating kind of life philosophy. I see the really great, wonderful, good things, and I want more of that. What do we need to do to make more of this good stuff happen, and carry on and progress into the future? We're actually wanting to progress into the future with more good stuff, whereas progressives kind of want to look at the bad stuff and rip it out and start over, which is regressive.
No, I really like the next paragraph after that quote. Gratitude captures so much of what conservatism is about because it highlights the philosophical difference between American conservatism and its foes on the left and some in the libertarian camp. The yardstick against which human progress is measured shouldn't be the sentiments and yearnings that define some unattainable utopian future, but the knowable and real facts of our common past. That's something that's been driving me nuts about libertarians lately, and with progressives and talking to them and socialists, and they're trying to say, oh, it can be this utopia if we just do this. If we just you just give us more control over this, we'll make it this utopia that's never existed on the earth. And conservatives, I've found in watching these discussions and participating, like to say, look, this is what was happening during the best time in the history of the earth for all of mankind. Let's try to go back to as close as that as we can, and then let's make some changes from there. That's what we want to conserve. That's what we want to bring back, is that American conservatism that made America what it was and therefore made the rest of the world what it is now. And that, to me, is a huge difference. Another part of this article I really liked is just kind of at the beginning, there's 6 canons of conservatism that he kind of edits down. Belief in a transcendent order or natural body of law which rules society as well as conscience. That natural body of law, to me, kind of speaks about reality and the real shared past. These utopian ideals aren't real. It can't happen. You can't have 400 million people in one geographical location all looking out for themselves with no sort of government or anything and have it work. Like, it would be a total disaster, but a lot of people hold on to that belief that it can, and it's against natural law for that to happen. Affection for the proliferating variety and mystery of human existence. And this is what Andy talks about all the time. I love the diversity in the conservative movement and on the right. We celebrate differences of opinion. We celebrate differences of background, differences in belief, whereas the left just wants everyone to conform. The latest thing today is the Confederate flag for some reason. I have no idea where that even came from, but somehow we have to get rid of the Confederate flag in every area of our society. And they demand it, and then as soon as that's done, they'll move on to the next thing.
Well, actually, I'm in favor of getting rid of everything from that flag.
I know. I kept thinking that throughout the days. I'd read about all this outrage, this manufactured outrage. It's like, sure, Republicans are fine getting rid of the institutionalized racism that flag represents. Like, I mean, it was Democrats' flag. It's the Democrats that are all the racism behind it. I mean, I don't know why no one's pointed that out yet. The next part. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna get Andy in here for a second. Yeah, Andy, go ahead. You were on a you had a thought there.
No. I'm done.
Oh, okay.
That's
Well,
my
I'm good.
last thought ever, actually. And you know what? It's a relief. I don't ever
Awesome.
want to go through that again.
I I just want to clarify the reason that the Confederate flag has been in the media so much was because of the horrible shooting in South Carolina and that douchebag punk kid who you know, I don't know. I mean, is just a horror. I think it was on his Facebook page or something. He's clearly a racist, horrible, you know, terrible person. That was what prompted the Confederate flag discussion popping back up and all that. And I think that, I mean, obviously we aren't really a show that deals with the news of the day. It's not really what we talk about, but you know, I understand two things about the Confederate flag discussion right now is that I think it's a distraction, and I think that I'm glad that it's no longer waving in South Carolina because then I don't have to worry about it ever appearing as a political football, ever again. It's done. I'm so happy that it's gone, so that the discussion can be retired. But that's just my 2 cents on that.
I think it's another scalp of control that the left is exercising their ability to make the entire country jump and in the period of 24 to 48 hours make some drastic change and just exercise and demonstrate their authority. And that's, again, that exemplifies the warning that Andy gave us at the beginning that today's Democrats are unlike anything we've ever seen. And we have to figure out who and what we are and what we're comfortable with. And this is something that we see. The left is saying, well, racism is bad, and if you take the flag away, then racism will be fixed. I mean, that's sort of the implicit message in this, is that there's a bad thing, and there's something that's causing it, and man can be perfected, and in order to perfect man, we're going to remove this flag that is causing man to be flawed. And once we remove this flag, then there's a chance that man will have achieved this perfection. And conservatives, again, we understand that man is flawed, the world is imperfect, life isn't fair. We're comfortable acknowledging all of these things, and we want to. Our goal as conservatives is to create a world, a family, in which we can all achieve the most we can to make things better for ourselves and our family and our progeny. We are, I mean, honestly, with our love for the free market, we absolutely adore the change that the free market brings. Think about it. The free market is a roiling ball of change and success and failure and creative destruction and the population moving forward all the time, always better, always better. And we don't, we have a certain gratitude for what has already been achieved and a humility about what can be achieved. We don't, and so you have to kind of combine the gratitude and the humility in the conservative movement, and that those two words really have nothing to do whatsoever with progressives. There's no gratitude and there's no humility. And we tend to be grateful for what we have and what we have achieved and humble about what we can achieve in the future and work towards it with the understanding that man is flawed and we have to work to not perfect man, but to create systems that enable flawed man to achieve his most.
Well, and something else that just kind of hit me while you were talking, Leslie, is that as conservatives, I think we tend to use the power of persuasion, whether it's through free markets or through dialogue and discussion. And
right.
So,
come with me to this wonderful thing. Yeah. Yeah.
This is why the Confederate flag is harmful or hurtful to other people, and persuading people so that they take it down of their own free will, versus the progressives, which say, "Oh, that's just evil. We should ban it."
They want to remove choices from you, you know. And by the way, JD, this means now that Charlotte cannot have their team be the Confederate Redskins. So they're not going to be able they're not going to be able to push that through anymore, which is really going to change a lot.
Yeah, I just want to point out here and sort of dovetail on what Corey just said and what's going on in the chat. Is that Prue said, so does this mean that General Lee have to get a new paint job now? No. This has nothing to do with to me, there's no quashing of free speech in this particular situation. Nobody's calling for a ban, or maybe somebody is calling for a ban of the Confederate flag, but nobody is seriously entertaining that we should ban the sale or display of the Confederate flag. That's not an actual conversation that's happening. It's just a flag that got taken down that was already moved off of the Capitol building in South Carolina. It was already moved once, and now it's moved into a museum where it probably belongs. So I think that we don't want to fall into some sort of outrage trap over the fact that this is going away, or that this one particular flag is not being displayed anymore. This is not a free speech discussion. That particular scenario, to me, I don't believe is a free speech discussion.
No, it was just more of an example of how the left tries to force agreement and compliance versus the right, which usually will try to use the power of persuasion and explain why something may be hurtful or harmful. And that can apply to so many different things. It's just the flag is what we were talking about, and that's what came to mind.
Well, I like how Leslie was looking at it, too. Basically, they're looking for a scalp. All they want, they feel empowered if they can remove something. They always feel they always want to be able to set up one thing as the villain and remove it, and then they feel empowered. This is why the left never fixes anything. They never fix anything complex. It's kind of like saying that well, we got Bin Laden, everything's okay. Hail the conquering hero. Barack Obama just made the easiest decision in the history of the American presidency and said, yeah, okay, go get him. But we just fixed it. And it fixed absolutely nothing. All they want to do is get rid of something, say they get a scalp, say they got something, removed something, and everything is going to be fixed when they offer no opportunity to create new things. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, yeah, I wanted to clarify what I was saying about the flag. I understand that it came from the shooting in South Carolina, but what I was meaning when I said I don't know where it came from is a racist, terrorist, crazy person goes in and shoots 8 black people trying to start a race war. They're peaceful, unarmed, praying and having Bible study in their church, and the reaction wasn't what we've seen all over the country the past couple of years. It wasn't race riots. It wasn't people up in arms. It was people coming together in love, and the media didn't get those ratings that they wanted. They didn't get the outrage that they wanted. They didn't get to push their agenda any further than they wanted. And so what they did was take one of his pictures with that flag, and I've seen probably 10 pictures with the American flag to one of the Confederate flag, but they chose that one because the Confederate flag used to be a symbol of racism and, as Andy pointed out, Democrat institutionalized racism, and in a lot of cases still is a symbol of racism, and so they chose to use that symbol to manufacture the outrage this time. I think we need to be aware that that's their tactic, that's what they're trying to do. I think if we want to take it down, that's just fine. If people decide that we're past that and it stands for racism and they don't want it anymore, I'm fine with that. I don't want to force companies to stop selling and things like that. But I think what we need to focus on in this is all the peace and all the good that's coming out of South Carolina. These tens of thousands of people rallies getting together, all the peace, the families of the victims forgiving. We need to focus on the good that's coming out of it, the races coming together and overcoming the racist past that our history has, and especially in the South. There's so much good coming out of this that I don't want to get involved in the manufactured outrage over a flag.
You know, I don't want to ban anything, but I don't really care if that flag goes away. Once again, it's a Democrat flag, so I love seeing it go away.
Especially when Nikki Haley can score political points.
Exactly.
And that's the thing, is that everybody wins in this scenario.
But here's what I don't like is the bias in how they pick and choose what to get rid of, what scalp to go after. And here's what I mean. What if the killer had instead been somebody who celebrates the flag of Mexico? Would they be banning that?
No, of course not, and we know that. I mean, this is obviously, like Ryan was saying, the controversy, not controversy, but the brouhaha over the flag is, it didn't happen right away. It happened when it became clear that Charleston was not going to erupt in race riots, and DeRay, the professional protester, was not successful in getting the people who were marching on the bridge to be an angry protest mob. They actually stuck to their guns and were a peaceful unity force walking across the bridge and celebrating the unity of humanity rather than erupting in riots and anger. And as Ryan says, the media missed their moment. They needed their exclamation points. They needed their outrage. And so this is a manufactured outrage. Not to deny people being genuinely upset about the flag, but the timing of it. You know, it used to be okay to question the timing. I question the timing. The timing of this entire anti-Confederate flag campaign is the evidence would point to, the circumstantial evidence points to it being funded and manufactured by the left to keep this thing in the press and to make this be a left victory against the racist right. They insist on making this event something that is left versus right, and the right will be the losers. Because the end of this story is not going to be that the bad guy is in prison and is going to die, and that the victims' families are absolutely touched by God, and that the citizenry of Charleston is truly an amazing, amazing group of people. That's not going to be the end story, because there's no left versus right, and there's no left victory in that. This thing has been turned into something that can be, when it all boils down to, the left won and got the Confederate flag banned, and not only banned from government buildings and memorials, but companies are going to ban it as well, and you can't have it on your t-shirt, and you're not going to be able to wear it to anything. So this will be a left victory over the racist right. That's the end. That's what this story became about, because the left made it be that way. That's who and what they are.
See, I disagree in some respect, because I think that a lot of the anti-Confederate flag, feeling is free market. I mean, to me, I think that that's something that people. I mean, looking at the polls in South Carolina, the people there didn't want that flag there. It's not popular. It wasn't popular. And if you look at again,
but that won't be the narrative. You know that won't be the narrative.
But talking about a left victory, and that's the thing that I'm not really sure about, is we had Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, and Lindsey Graham, along with a bunch of other Republicans and some Democrats, have an announcement saying that they were trying to get rid of this flag.
Right, they gave in to what the left wanted them to do.
Comments from all sorts of Republicans saying that they think that this flag is ridiculous. That this shouldn't be there anyway. I don't know. I don't know that this is a left wins thing. And
yeah,
just personally, I don't see it as that. And maybe I'm naive, but I just think it's hard. It's hard for me to see this as an effective scalp for the left.
Well, I think, if I may jump in for a second,
Sure.
Jake, you're right. We don't see it that way, but Leslie's right. The people, by and large, will see this as a win for the left because they will see this as a win for banning something we don't like, and that's what the left does. They ban things they don't like.
They made something happen. They got it done finally. Woo-hoo. And I predict they are going to push even harder over the next 24 to 48 hours, and they're going to push for even further and more intense, even crazy banning of the Confederate flag because they're trying to get conservatives to defend the flag. And I've already seen it sort of start to happen on social media because the stories get pushed about Amazon and eBay banning the Confederate flag, which may or may not be true, in fact. And I kind of don't think it's true that they are banning the flag, but the stories are out there as trolling, as troll bait to try to get conservatives to defend the Confederate flag, and people are doing it. They're trolling us at this point.
Well, the reason it's a good strategy is because we have a hard time with banning expression.
Right.
We don't like to ban expression because it's bad. We like to call it bad expression. And they're saying, unless you ban it, you support it. And that is where we are lacking in our messaging. We're not showing people, look, we do not support it. We support freedom of expression. You support denial of expression. Now, to take it off state grounds and stuff like that, hey, yeah, way to go, Nikki Haley.
That's cool.
But you're right. The left is going to push much further than that, and we are going to look bad for not banning this everywhere. Which is unfortunate, and we're right to not ban it everywhere.
And it's going to be hard to try to help our fellow conservatives be explicit in their arguments against the banning, that our argument is not in favor of the Confederate flag. Our argument is against banning of things.
And that goes back into the article that we were talking about to begin with before we sort of went into this tangent on flags.
Yeah. I really wanted to, again, this was kind of a kismet or, a synchronicity type of week where Jonah writes this article explaining what conservatism is, and then like the next day there's an article in the Federalist about liberal pieties that only the right still believes, which is basically telling me, and I'm reading this and I'm saying, because Jonah was saying that American conservatism is classical liberalism, and and here's Robert Trosinski saying these 7 things that are liberal concepts that I grew up in. I grew up with parents who understood what the liberal world was because both of my parents were Texas Democrats until it became okay to be a Republican in Texas, but they were Texas Democrats, which means they were liberal in this way, which is now conservatism. And the very first thing in this article that used to be a closely held liberal piety was the right to offend. Didn't we all grow up thinking that, in the 60s, the liberals were the ones who were all, it's okay, it's cool to be offensive? Well, now, progressives don't let you be offensive. We're the ones now arguing in favor of the ability to be offensive and the ability to offend people. I mean, I thought it's like I read through this whole article of these 7 items: the right to offend, the value of a liberal education, liberal arts, government should stay out of the bedroom, live and let live, support for Israel, support for human rights, the dignity of the working man. These 7 things are what I always thought Democrats were about. This is what I always thought liberals were, and I kind of agreed with all of that. Well, come to find out, these things that I agree with only find a home on the Conservative Party today, in the conservative movement today.
I just find it fascinating because after reading that article, I was just like, wow, when did all of this change?
I don't know. When did it change?
Think about it. What was always the mantra that people would say? Question authority. Question authority. Challenge the man. Don't, stick it to the man. But
Get the government out of my bedroom.
Yeah, but now, if you dare say anything or question a policy, whether it's usually, something you question from Obama, but even any Democrat, people are like, oh, I can't believe you did that. You're supposed to be respectful. The government is important. The president is our leader. I can't believe you did that. Oh, you just triggered me. I'm going to have to go to my safe space now. What the
There's my fainting couch. Did it start to happen when Republicans gained more power, or when Republicans lost power and the Democrats became the power structure? Because they were always fight the power, and now they are the power.
It magically happened January 2008, where Hillary Clinton before that said it's fine to. I can't remember her shrill yelling, something like if you
like patriotism.
It's
Questioning
not,
authority was the highest form of patriotism or something?
Yeah, you can't call me unpatriotic because I question authority. I don't want to listen to it again because of her voice. Drives me nuts. But I think it happened before that. I think it's been going for a long time. I wanted to seriously ask you guys, the elder statesmen of the group, did it maybe happen after Reagan's landslide re-election? Because I think he came into power and did a lot of conservative things, and it worked. I think the Reagan Democrats, I think people kind of realized that, okay, this is our values, this guy supports it, we can work together on this, and then somehow after that we became a lot more polarized. Maybe George Bush did it, maybe Clinton, maybe it was kind of over time. I'm too young to really know.
But even in the 80s, Andy Kaufman was a successful, and Sam Kinison and all of those comedians, they were offensive. They were able to make fun of women and Jews and blacks and all of the things that you can't joke about now. And, Lenny Bruce back even before that. But, I mean, we still had the left, which was, all those guys were lefties, and they were still able to offend. So I think it was after, was it maybe after Reagan and during the Clinton era that it started?
Yes, let's blame Clinton. I think that's probably the best. That's the
Because,
best.
because the left became the power structure when in the Clinton era, the Democrats came into power. And so once they're in power, then it has to be right to, you can't object to the power, you can't fight the power because they are the power. Maybe?
I don't know, because the other thing I was thinking is that some of these things that were, considered wonderful values of liberals, they really value people. Like the human rights, the valuing of Israel, and all those other things that you just named off. And, over the last 30 years, there's been a huge devaluing of the individual and of people. And so I wonder if that might have played somewhat into it as well. And then also when you look at the policies of the left and how they've become more and more controlling, you can't value individuals or people if you want to control them. So maybe that was the splitting point, or part of it.
I guess that could be true as well. That could be true as well. Because, I always thought of the left and the Democrat Party as the party of, the working class, the blue collar man, and support for poor people and human rights and all of these things, and these things that are now being totally ignored. I mean, they certainly don't care about human rights anymore. They will hang out with human rights violators, and they criticize Israel and celebrate human rights violators, and they no longer really celebrate the working man. I mean, look at Mike Rowe, who all Mike Rowe does, he's not partisan. He's not a political guy. He just talks about the value of work and how important it is to have a job and contribute to society, and it makes you feel important, and it makes you a better person. And he gets accused of being, a Fox News stooge, and the left hates him for talking about the value of work, when Democrats used to be the party of of the working man. So if you work for a living and are interested in advancing your family through your hard-earned effort, you don't find a supportive infrastructure on the Democrat Party anymore. it seems that if you are at heart a liberal and have these liberal pieties, that the only place for you is in the Republican Party or in the conservative movement, helping the Republican Party to become more conservative. And maybe that's, coming back to the family analogy that Andy had. It's like there's this branch of the family, of our conservative family, that maybe we haven't really let them. Maybe they're like this mystery uncle. They don't really know that they're part of our family because they have all of these liberal beliefs that they believe that they are Democrats because they believe in these 7 things. They believe that government should stay out of your bedroom. They believe that they believe in live and let live. They believe in support for Israel and human rights and the dignity of the working man, and they believe in the value of a liberal education. And so they assume that they're Democrats, but they're not. They are not part of the Borg. They think they're part of the Borg, but they're actually part of our family, and we need to help them understand that they are part of our family.
Where's
And
Maury Povich when you need him? And the
yeah,
father is
exactly. Or, maybe, okay, I heard Darth Vader in my head. Sorry.
we need
I am
Dick
your
Cheney. That's exactly what we need. We need Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney. Telling all the liberals, I am your
Yeah,
father.
I am your father.
That would be awesome. But hey, when JD and I were talking about this earlier, about how these liberals are actually the people who think of themselves as liberals are actually today's conservatives. They are American conservatives in the 21st century. It brought to mind that we have in our midst someone who once was, well, actually still is kind of a philosophical liberal, and he is very much of a conservative now. He woke up and realized that his liberal philosophy actually made him more at home in the Conservative Party than the Democrat Party. I mean, am I saying this right, Andy, or did I have it completely wrong about how you woke up and came to realize you were conservative?
Leslie, the term is transition. Tell us
Oh,
about your transition, Andy.
yes, tell us your transition, Andy.
I'm a tranny.
You're a tranny.
Talked about that before. Okay. Look, my transition was partially, how do I put it? I actually believed in a lot of the collectivist mindset for a while, but here was the problem. My family was extremely hardworking and industrious. Extremely. My family was extremely not power oriented, not control oriented. My family, they don't do power, except in one thing. I came to start realizing they wanted, as it wasn't just my family, it was the movement, wanted to control anybody they disagreed with. They wanted to control the rich. They wanted to control the Christians. And by the way, folks, a huge part of why the liberal agenda is simply anti-Christian. Okay, so as they gained in power over the Christians, and they came into power, therefore it became wrong to come down on them in that way. It's not always the case, but I basically came to realize that those around me always wanted to control anybody they disagreed. They wanted to control the military. They wanted to control anything that they didn't like. They wanted to control how much people paid, how much they made, everything they did in life. And the biggest thing was they wanted to use the environment. I was raised heavily in the environmentalism type thing. Here was the bottom line. I could not live with the desire to control others. I also couldn't live with the constant hatred of others. Hatred for the military, for Christians, for oil companies, for whatever, for big business. I couldn't deal with it. And to be part of a movement that's completely driven by hate, not by potential, that sees people as something to be corralled, like the collective, like the Borg, as something to be corralled and centrally planned and made to obey. I couldn't live that way. I couldn't live that way. When I looked at people, when I would look at a newborn baby, I saw more in those eyes. I saw what that child could become, not what we could make that child. And I think that that was the biggest difference. And I think today in the Republican Party, too often, we don't look at each other as that child, unless we're calling each other babies. But we don't look at each other as that child. We don't look at each other and say, I want to see the potential of you doing what you believe in, whether or not it agrees with me. Too often we look at each other and say, I will value you insofar as you agree with me. That's control. See, we have let too much of the left into the right. We've let too much of the mindset of the collective into the family. But the problem is we don't operate on that fuel source. We operate on choice. They operate on control. If we rally around one thing, liberty, and allow for each other to choose, and basically, do like a good parent, want our kids to grow up and be better than us, not exactly like us, we will defeat the collective. But if we keep trying to control each other and make demands of each other and threaten each other, we're going to lose, and we're going to lose big.
Well, and that's the live and let live portion of what I used to think of as the Democrat liberal party. They were the live and let live ones, and that's why I always thought, if I had been born earlier, I totally would have been a hippie, because I very much believe in live and let live. And what I'm seeing now in 2015 is that only the conservatives are talking that game. And there are folks within the conservative movement and on the Republican side of things that are of that totalitarian control, top-down bent, and we can help them, within having our little arguments within the family, we can help dissuade them of that idea, because it really isn't the way to, maximum success if we're that top-down controlling. But live and let live is, I think, it's a very popular concept, and it's a marketable idea. And I think if we can help more people understand that if you believe in live and let live, you can't be a Democrat. You have to be a conservative at this point in time, at this point in America. If you are live and let live, then you need to be a conservative, because live and let live is the kind of people who would allow Brendan Ike to donate a little bit of money to a conservative cause and yet remain the CEO of Mozilla. We would allow the guy, we would permit the whole Gamergate thing, and we wouldn't be like that Anita chick and wanting to mandate that video game writers create games in our vision of what is appropriate for feminism. Live and let
God, can you imagine if we were in that position and we tried to make every single game based off of Atlas Shrugged? How boring and terrible the video game industry would be.
Guys, let's keep in mind the liberal mindset, and the reason it wins over people in America separates between what you have and your body. Okay?
But it lies about what it is. Because today's progressivism pretends to be these things that it's not.
Well, when they say live and let live, they only mean with your body. Okay? What you do morally and so forth. They want no constraints whatsoever on what you do with your body. But with your money...
unless you decide not to have sex before marriage, because that is completely wrong.
Well, you see, and let me just remind, this is why they win the young people. I always say this. We in the right offer freedom really in about 95% of life. The left offers freedom in about 5% of life. Here's the problem. That 95% of life, like you just said, how this and that person, you were throwing out fiscal things. He should be able to donate money to what he thinks he supports. See, his money. That 95% of life where we offer liberty and freedom, young people don't own any of that. They don't have that kind of money. They don't own property. They don't deal with water rights, land rights, mineral rights. They don't They don't create jobs. They don't compete internationally with companies overseas that have cheaper labor, easier EPA restrictions, and so forth. They don't deal with any of that. The only thing young people own is their bodies. And that is the only thing that we on the right are perceived as controlling. And because of that, to a young person, the 5% that we control is 100% of their life. Our 5% is their 100%. And so to young people, we on the right want to control 100% of their life. That's how the left gets the young people. And by the way, I'm a social conservative. You know, I'm not a social liberal. I'm a social conservative. But I simply believe that insofar as your choices do not take away other people's choices, I don't want my beliefs to be your laws. I still hold them. I live by them. Okay? But I don't want them to be your laws. The second I want to impose my views, my beliefs on you as your laws, even when your life would not affect somebody else, I'm controlling you. That's why we lose the young people, and they're very hard to get back.
Well, and I wonder if this ties back to what Corey was talking about earlier, the kind of the difference between permit and force and persuade versus force. We want to persuade young people to delay sex until after marriage, and to delay children until after marriage, and to delay marriage until after they have a career. We want to persuade them to delay gratification until they can afford it. And we want to persuade them to understand the ramifications of the things that they do. But we don't want to force them. We do want to persuade. But maybe society today really has kind of lost the ability to differentiate between persuasion and force. And they think that if I'm trying to talk you into something, that's exactly the same as me mandating it. And if I'm trying to persuade you that something is not good, that's exactly the same as me forbidding it. I'm just trying to persuade you to make the choice on your own. I'm trying to advise and consent, perform the role of advice and consent. But the Democrats don't want to do that of advice and consent. They force or prohibit. And people kind of have lost track of the difference between the two.
Well, and I also think along with that, one thing that I often see conservatives, especially social conservatives, forget to do is explain why. It's not enough just to say that's bad for you.
True.
Don't do that. I told you not to do that. Do it because I said so.
Do it because you will be richer, the statistics show.
Right. And we pull out our charts and graphs, and it just doesn't work. Their eyes glaze over.
A two-parent family is the key to financial success.
But if we forget to explain why and to teach, that's where the problem comes in. It's easy to just force your opinions on others. It takes time and effort to persuade and to explain and to teach. And that's what I think so many conservatives forget to do, because to them, they just see this as logical. This is normal. This is their normal. But for most of society, things like a two-parent family, it is not normal. When I worked downtown with the schools, I worked with high-risk youth in Denver for 6 years. I remember I had lunch with a little 6-year-old. We were in the lunchroom, and he was so cute. And he wanted to get to know us, his teachers. And we were talking, and we didn't really know what to ask him. So we're like, well, hey, do you have brothers and sisters? And he's like, well, yeah, I do. We're like, oh, okay, how many? Well, I don't know, actually. But I know I'm my mother's first and my father's ninth. And we were just appalled. We're like, oh, my gosh.
Whoa.
Yeah, right? So, we're trying to play it cool. We don't want to freak him out that we think it's odd. So I'm like, oh, okay. And we talked a little bit more, and then one of us asked, so do you get to see your dad very much? No, he got shot.
Uh-oh.
It was so normal for him, but we were totally appalled by that. And then he started asking us questions about us. And so how many brothers and sisters do you have, Miss Corey? Well, I have 3 sisters and a little brother. Oh. So what about your mom and dad? Yeah, I have a mom and a dad. Wait, you all live together? Yes, we all live together. Oh, that's weird.
Wow.
So I know that's an extreme example, but there are so many stories in between that extreme and what my normal, that we need to get outside of our bubble and we need to put ourselves in the other person's shoes, and we need to explain why, and don't take it for granted that people understand.
And when we offer this stuff, we have to offer it and basically say, look, I've had so many people say, yeah, you want to make us, and I go immediately, drop the word make. There is no Christian jihad. Okay? I want to offer. If you don't choose it on your own, it's worthless to you. The last thing I would want to do is make. Jesus never made non-Christians live like Christians, ever. Why would I do that to you? And setting Christianity aside, why would I make any social system? And why would I force you into that? But since I wouldn't force you into anything, would you be willing to listen to why I think there are some pretty good things that you would really enjoy that would make you pretty happy? And I'll listen to you too. Now, does that sell a lot better than what we've done? I believe it does.
Yeah.
Another thing that we don't really do too well is we need to remember that this is a conversation that we have to have, and we've talked about it here a billion times about the conservative small talk ideas and all of that stuff. But it's so important to remember that you can't just be yelling at people and assume that they're going to pick it up, or just recite the same facts and stats and statistics. It's not going to work. You have to have a conversation, and that means hearing their ideas. That means, here's one of my ideas. What do you have to say about this? What is what's on your mind? How does this affect you? And how can we work together to make this better? It's not just a we're right. And what was it that Brass said last week? In your face. Yeah, that we're not supposed to, that's not how things work. You don't get points across like that. It's not.
It works if you have the power of the point of a gun to force your ideas on somebody, which the Democrats do. But because we actually are trying to sell our ideas, we have to be salesmen. And one of the things that when I was actually in sales, the first thing that you have to do if you want to be a successful salesperson is understand what your customer needs. That means you have to figure out your customer. You have to learn about them and learn what their needs are and figure out what aspect of your product solves their problem.
I actually have to talk with people in order to be an effective salesperson of conservatism. All right, that's it.
Oh my God, I hope not. I don't like people. Don't make me talk to people. That's no.
What I do is I hand out tracts.
Okay. I saw a couple of guys on a bicycle this afternoon. They were in white shirts with black pants. Do you suppose they were Mormons? They had pencil protectors.
I hand out tracts. Well, they probably were. I hand out tracts. Capitalism and what it can do for your life, and I just hand that out to them.
What it can do for your wife or life?
Who cares about that? No, I'm talking about being loud.
Oh my gosh! But the problem, Andy, the problem about that is that people actually think like that. People actually think that you can just hand somebody a pocket constitution and it's going to do the job. People think that they can just say, here's this brick of a.
You don't hand it to them. You hit them over the head with it. Come on.
That's exactly it.
And you bestow the Constitution on them. They have been healed.
Well, I don't know. A friend of ours actually did do this with somebody. He stopped and helped some teenager fix his flat tire on the side of the road. And when the kid turned to say thank you, he asked him what his name was. And he goes, "My name is Batman." And he handed him a pocket constitution and he walked away.
Oh my God, that's awesome. My name is Batman. Here's your Constitution.
Okay.
The kid might have actually read it because it was so weird.
There are certain instances that
there are sales tactics that are crazy like that work.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think the best thing we got to keep in mind, folks, is if you are trying to make them more like you so you can feel that so you can turn this society into a more comfortable place for you, then you're trying to control. You're acting as the collective. See, there can be a Christian collective, and I'm a born-again right-wing evangelical Christian, so yeah, I understand the difference. You can be a capitalist collective. You can be anything where whenever you're trying to control your audience, the person you're talking to, or your fellow conservatives, you're acting as the collective. Okay? That doesn't sell. If you want to sell conservatism, you have to sell what matters to them. And so you lead with, look, what I want is for you to be happy. I want you to find happiness. Here's how I think you can do it. Would you be willing to listen to that? Okay? That's how you lead. You don't lead with, you are not enough like me, and that makes you wrong. That makes you bad. And here are the statistics that say your kind of family is wrecking our country. Okay? That's the problem. And they are hearing too much of that from us at times.
And I think this cycles us back to the concept that we started out with, where the conservatism is like a family, and maybe we can think of ourselves as the big Mormon family, and we're all going out on mission to sell conservatism to the crazy liberals out there, and to the people who are conservative. They just and are conservative members of the family. They just don't realize it yet, because they believe
an article about that a few years ago, or something really similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, evangelical conservatism. Like, we need to treat it like evangelicals. We need to live it. We need to tell everyone why we do what we do. Make sure they know, and make sure we live the example so they can watch us and see us.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we have to think of ourselves, the conservative movement, as this family, and any family has the like the freaks and weirdos and that little branch of the family that you don't necessarily agree with, but they have their own value to other people, and we don't all have to agree on the exact same thing. We have the same goals, but we can use different strategies to achieve those goals. And as Andy said in the article, family first, folks. It must be family first, or we're finished. Today's collective is way too powerful, and we have to be thinking along these lines all the time, that we are salespeople. So we have to figure out what our marketing pitch is. And in order to have an effective marketing pitch, we have to know our customer, and our customer is different depending on what group we're talking to. The customer's needs are different, so our marketing pitch has to be different. And we aren't selling some weird thing that's written in a piece of paper. We're not selling the Constitution. We're selling our family. We're trying to grow our family and bring people into the family. We're not trying to really sell them a product that is conservatism. We're trying to bring them into the family that is the conservative family, and take them over and bring them in, because they will retain their individuality as a member of the family. They aren't assimilated into the Borg. They become a member of the family that is a contributing member with their own unique role and their own unique assets. And we all together can achieve and grow and create this beautiful, not utopia, more successful world. And I think if we can think along those lines on a fairly consistent basis, we'll have more luck in fighting against the collective. But I'm not sure that I even see defeat of the collective in a near future. Do you guys? There's
no defeat. You don't defeat them. They don't stay defeated. That's not how it works. This is an ideology that's not going to be stomped out. It's always going to persist. It's just who's winning at the time, and I think that we definitely have a great shot at improving. Whether we're winning, in the next year, and I think that we can win in the short term, and I think that we can win in the long term. It's just we have to get better at the things that we're trying to get better at here on the Refinery. I mean, as a movement, I mean, we've changed a lot since 2010 and the Tea Party in 2009 and 2000. All since those big events, there's been a huge sort of reformation of the conservative movement. So I think that there's definitely potential for us to be winners going forward, And I mean, we've talked about the liberal bench, but we've also talked about the conservative bench. It's about us. If we can get better at selling conservatism and freedom and liberty, then great. I think that we have a very good shot at debilitating the left and the Borg.
I think we can beat them. I think if we stop trying to control each other, we will stop trying to control those outside of us, those on the outside. If we start looking for the potential and see the excitement in each other, then we'll start to see the potential and the excitement in that independent person we're talking to. We can win, okay? We can win, but we first have to stop campaigning by threat amongst ourselves. Folks, we're not losing them in the general. We're losing them in our own primary. Because we are learning in our own primary to hate each other, and that doesn't leave enough love to reach them. So this is what we have to do. We have to stop trying to threaten and control one another. And when we do that, something beautiful happens. We're going to remember, we're going to recall, we're going to re-experience the beauty of the conservative movement. And let me tell you something. If there are two houses next to each other and one is the liberal movement and one is the truly functioning conservative movement, the conservative movement is the one with the door wide open that people are going to feel more invited into. And the other one is going to be the Borg, where they're going to feel, well, I'm going to be controlled there, but I only go there if I'm afraid of the other house and I'm convinced that this is the only way to control them and to keep them from controlling me. So we can reach each other, we can do it, but to start to win in the general, start in the primaries. We got to start working with each other, not against.
Well, and to see each other as family, and in a family, each person has their own best assets and best abilities, and when there's a particular job that needs to be done, not every member of the family is going to be the ideal person for that job. You'll look at and say, okay, we've got 16 people that we're looking at possibly to do this one job. Yeah, you're probably going to be the better one for that job, but these other guys are going to be great for some other particular job. And we're all members of the same family, and we each have our own beautiful skills and abilities that we bring to the family. And rather than looking at as a family tree, and when somebody isn't the right person, we don't cut them off the tree and throw them away and turn them into garbage. We leave them on the tree and we use them for another purpose. So I think we do tend to throw away some of our own family members in these primary fights, rather than just saying, oh, you know what, I like all of these guys, but of these 16, this one I think is the best, and we'll argue over that. And then once we decide, and once the group has decided that of these 16, this one is the one we're going with, we're all going to rally behind this guy for that particular job, and the other 15 will carry on and benefit the family in their particular way. We're not going to say that those 15 and the people who promoted those 15 are bad people, because they're not. They're all members of the family, and the family has to stick together. It's what is this? The mafia theory of conservative?
I've been saying it the whole entire show. This is the Godfather episode. It is. It's 100% the Godfather episode. It's one of the clips already. I'm sure I'm gonna be digging up the picture. There's several pictures from the Godfather, and pictures from Star Trek, of course. So we're covering all of the bases tonight.
We're shamelessly pandering to the audience. We're pandering to the sci-fi community. We mentioned Gamergate, so we're pandering to the gamer community. We are pandering to the the guys in the audience who love all the Godfather movies. We really haven't pandered.
That's sexist. That's sexist.
We really haven't pandered to the women in the community. Is there anything, Corey, you want to talk about Pinterest or? Let's see. Oh, I think we mentioned eBay at some point. That's girly, right? Isn't it?
I don't know. I think so. honestly, I've been so buried with work, I haven't even had time to do anything fun. So I don't know what girly stuff is these days.
Me either. Yeah, sorry.
Dodge that bullet.
I was looking at some crochet patterns earlier on Ravelry, but couldn't figure out what to make. So, oh my God, I just girlified the whole show.
There, you did your duty. Yay!
And I think that's going to be a wrap now that I have pretty much killed our audience going, oh my God, crochet, ew. I really am that crazy Aunt Leslie who crochets Afghans for everyone with her cats. I have not yet crocheted clothes for my cats, but that's probably next. Anyway, now that I've frightened everyone, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show and say thank you, everybody out there in listener land and chat land. I'm sorry I wasn't in the chat today. I just was not quite able to get that going technically. I was a little afraid that that was going to be the one thing that brought the whole system crashing down. Anyway, I appreciate you guys listening and participating this week, and we will be back next week, next Tuesday at 8:45 Central, which is 9:45 JD time, and 7:45 Corey and Andy time, and Ryan time. Oh my gosh, I'm the only one in Central Time here today. So
Holy
weird.
Crap, this is the.
I'm the only Texan here today. After last week was
severe
3
Texas. That's what it is. We've got severe Texas withdrawal symptoms here.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, check us out during the week at therefineryshow.com. Also, you can listen to the clips that JD will be putting together every day or ish, whatever. He's been ill, so cut him a little slack on preparing those clips. And we will see you guys next Tuesday at 8:45 Central. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. See you next week.